Remember the last time you said something awkward and felt certain every person in the room saw it and would never forget? They did not, and they already have. So why does your brain keep putting you on a stage that nobody is watching? Consider how the feeling behaves. It arrives instantly, it is vivid, and it refuses to be reasoned with. The explanation that feels true is that you are being scrutinized, that your mistake is written on your face, and that everyone else is filing it away in a permanent folder. That explanation feels true because it matches the intensity of the moment. But the intensity is not evidence. In 2000, a team of psychologists at Cornell University tested exactly this feeling in a room with a t-shirt, a bad pop singer, and a group of strangers who did not care. What they found tells you something your own brain has been hiding from you for your entire social life. The experiment ran like this. A Cornell student walked into a room where a small group of other students were waiting. The newcomer was wearing a t-shirt with the face of Barry Manilow printed across the chest. To a college student in the year 2000, Barry Manilow was about as cool as a tax audit. The shirt was chosen to be embarrassing. After sitting through a conversation with the group, the wearer had to answer one question. How many of the other people in the room would be able to name what was on the shirt? The wearers predicted that about half of the group would remember, roughly 46%. The actual number was 23%. In other words, close to 1 in 4 did notice. But the wearers guessed 1 in 2. Their estimate was double the truth, and the truth was already small. Now stop and take the intuitive explanation seriously for one more moment. It says that your estimate of social attention is a reasonable read on the room. You feel watched because people are watching you. But the numbers from the t-shirt room break that story. The wearers did not suffer from bad vision. They suffered from a bias in how the mind samples information, and the bias has a name. Psychologists Thomas Jilovich, Victoria Husted-Medvec, and Kenneth Savitsky called it the spotlight effect. It is the tendency to overestimate how much others notice and remember about you. The t-shirt study was the first clean demonstration, but the effect has been reproduced in many forms since. The reason it happens is not narcissism. It is something more basic, a quirk in the machinery that builds your sense of the social world, and you can watch it operate if you know where to look. The mechanism is called egocentric anchoring. Here is how it works. When you try to estimate what another person is focused on, your brain does not start from nothing. It starts from your own experience. Your attention is locked on your own blunder, so that is the anchor. Then your brain tries to adjust, to subtract the fact that the other person is not inside your head. It adjusts, but never enough. The anchor holds. The result is a number that is half true and half your own panic. This is why the feeling is so strong. It is built from the rawest data you have, the view from the only skull you will ever inhabit. You cannot hear the other person's thoughts. You cannot see their attention waver. So your brain substitutes its own spotlight for theirs and reports it as fact. Here is a second line of evidence, and it is almost comedic. Flip the question. Instead of wearing the shirt, imagine you are the observer in the room. How much do you remember about the embarrassing moments of the people you met last week? The answer comes back almost empty. People remember themselves. They remember their own slip, their own joke, their own exit. The observer's mind is doing the same egocentric trick as the wearer, just aimed at a different target. Both people are the star of their own movie, and neither one is in the other's film. The room was full of people who were each busy playing themselves. Nobody had spare attention left for the Barry Manilow shirt. That is the paradox at the heart of the effect. Every audience member is also on stage, and an actor who is busy performing cannot watch the other actors. But there is a twist that makes the effect even more stubborn. In a follow-up variation, the wearers learned exactly which people in the room had actually noticed the shirt. Their beliefs about attention should have updated. They did not. The wearers continued to believe that the people who noticed held a worse opinion of them. That part turned out to be false as well. The observers who spotted the shirt did not judge the wearer more harshly. Seeing the shirt was not the same as caring about it. A person can notice your mistake and file it in the trash 10 seconds later. The wearer assumed that attention comes bundled with judgment, that being seen means being scored. Your brain does this constantly. It converts the fact of being noticed into evidence of being condemned, even when the notice is mild and the condemnation never exists. So now the question that matters: why would a brain be wired this way? An error that makes you feel constantly scrutinized seems like a design flaw. But think about the environment the brain evolved in. A small band of humans, maybe 30 people, and survival depended on staying accepted by them. Exclusion from the group meant hunger, danger, and death. In that world, a false alarm was cheap. Overestimating how much others watch you costs you a moment of discomfort. Underestimating it, missing the signs that the group has turned against you, could cost you your life. Natural selection does not care about accuracy in unimportant cases. It cares about not missing the important ones. A brain that leans toward feeling watched is a brain that never gets excluded by surprise. The overestimate is the entrance fee for staying in the tribe. The spotlight effect is not limited to shame. It also inflates your victories. The same mechanisms that make you think everyone saw you stumble also make you think everyone noticed your good line in the meeting, your sharp answer, your moment of grace. Researchers have shown this in the positive direction. People overestimate how many others notice them making a good impression, just as they overestimate how many notice them making a bad one. The anchor is not shame. The anchor is self-importance in the technical sense, the simple fact that you are the center of your own universe. Your successes occupy your mind, so you assume they occupy everyone else's. Your great moment and your awful moment are both louder to you than to anyone else. That symmetry is a clue. It means the effect is not about embarrassment or anxiety. It is about the structure of perspective itself. Are there moments when the spotlight is real? Yes, and naming them keeps the idea honest. When you are literally the center of attention, giving a speech, in a job interview, on a first date, the feeling tracks reality. The spotlight effect is strongest for ambiguous moments, where the audience's focus is unknown. It weakens when the stage is announced. There is also a personality limit. People who score high in public self-consciousness, the chronic sense of being observed, show a stronger spotlight effect. And there is an objective limit. If you show up to a formal event in a swimsuit, people will notice. But those real spotlights are rare. The daily version of the effect is not about true visibility. It is about the gap between what people actually track and what you assume they track. That gap is wide, and it is where most of your unearned embarrassment lives. Here is what the gap costs you in real life. It is the reason you stay silent in a seminar when you do not understand, because you imagine that raising your hand will label you as the only lost person in the room. It is the reason you over-apologize for a small mistake, because you think the mistake has a long half-life in other people's memory. It is the reason you rehearse a conversation that the other person forgot before it ended. It is the reason you decline the dance, skip the question, play small. Each of those decisions is a tax you pay to an audience that does not exist. The estimates vary, but the direction is consistent. You are not as visible, not as remembered, not as judged as you feel. The people around you are not grading you. They are grading themselves. The practical move is to treat the feeling as a reading, not a fact. When the warmth of embarrassment rises, ask one question. Is there a real stage here, or is this my anchor talking? The honest answer in most cases is the anchor. Then correct in the direction the data points. Cut the estimate roughly in half. People will notice half as often as you think, remember for a quarter as long, and judge you a fraction as harshly. That correction feels wrong at first because the feeling is so vivid. But the t-shirt room proves the correction is the accurate one. You are recalibrating a faulty instrument, not pretending. And the instrument calibrates fast. The more you test the audience with small experiments, asking a question, making a mistake, telling a story, the more the data replaces the panic. The spotlight effect does not live alone. It belongs to a family of egocentric biases. The illusion of transparency makes you think that other people can read your internal state, that your lie is visible, that your nervousness is obvious. The false consensus effect makes you overestimate how many other people share your opinions and habits. The curse of knowledge makes it impossible to imagine what it was like to not know what you now know. All of these share one engine. You have direct access to exactly one mind, your own. Your brain mistakes that single sample for the population. It is a sampling error with social consequences. The spotlight effect is just the version that governs attention. The illusion of transparency governs emotion. The curse of knowledge governs knowledge itself. Learn one, and you begin to see the shape of all the others. So back to the blunder you opened with. The moment you said the wrong name, spilled the drink, or froze on the question. The room did not capture a permanent record of it. The people there were busy editing their own next line, their own exit, their own sense of being watched. The bright light you felt was your own attention, aimed at you, amplified by the only evidence your brain could reach. Their eyes were on you for a beat, maybe two, then they returned to the stage they were already performing on. The audience in your memory was never the audience in the room. That realization is the whole point of the t-shirt experiment. The spotlight you fear is a projection, and knowing that changes the price of every mistake you will ever make again. Here is the final piece. The same blindness works in your favor. Right now, some person is replaying their worst moment from yesterday, their awkward sentence, their clumsy exit. They are certain you noticed. You did not. You were too busy replaying your own. That is the silent contract between every human in every room. We each perform for an audience that does not exist, and we each fail to notice the performances around us. The spotlight effect is not a curse. It is the price of having a self. The trick is to remember that yourself is the only one you are staging. Everyone else has a backstage of their own. And on that stage, you have never once been the show.